Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian, and I'm here again at the Rock Island Auction Company, taking a look at some of the guns in the September 2014 premiere auction. And one gun in particular that one of you guys requested I take a look at is, in fact, the world's most outlandish, out-of-place firearm, I would say. And that is the M30 Luftwaffe survival rifle. These are actually gorgeous, commercial-grade drillings, so two shotgun barrels over a rifle barrel, made by Sauer & Son. They're called the M30. It was a 1930 commercial gun that was then purchased by the Luftwaffe. This is the emergency weapon if your plane gets shot down, believe it or not. They come in a case, big solid aluminum case with some nice, very military stenciled markings on it. You would not expect this gorgeous rifle to come out of this rather Spartan case, but so they did. The two shotgun barrels on here are 12 gauge, and they are over a 9.3 by 74 rim rifle barrel. And that's a rather large cartridge, roughly equivalent ballistically to like 375 Nitro Express. That's a full-on African, plains dangerous game kind of cartridge. So about 2,500 of these were made in total, and they were made from April of 1941 through till about September of 1942. By that point, I guess it became obvious to everyone involved that they were spending way more money on these guns than you needed for a survival rifle. It seems like apparently someone thought, I should say these were mostly issued to aircraft crews flying over North Africa. And I guess someone thought that North Africa was full of lions and tigers and elephants, which it's not. It's actually Central and Southern Africa. But they went and issued these anyway. That 9.3 by 74R cartridge will take down pretty much anything. I'm not sure how practical it really is in the North African Sahara Desert, though. So anyway, the gun folds up, or comes apart like any break action gun. Fits into this case very nicely. The cases had a bunch of other gear in them. They came with 20 rounds of rifle ammunition and 20 rounds of Brennecke slugs for the 12 gauge barrel, and then another 25 rounds of birdshot for the other 12 gauge barrel. Cleaning gear, instruction manual, all sorts of stuff in this nice padded case. So that would fit into the airplane cockpit, and if you crashed, you'd go pull it out when you needed it. So there are 2 triggers and 3 barrels, so there has to be some overlap. And the way that works is that the front barrel will fire both, or the front trigger will fire the rifle barrel, and it will also fire the right shotgun barrel. So this guy. Now that right shotgun barrel is choked for birdshot. The left shotgun barrel is choked for slugs, and the left barrel is actually regulated to hit at the same point of impact at 100 yards as the rifle barrel. Now, to adjust from firing the right shotgun barrel to the rifle, we have this button and sliding lever here. Push that button down and slide it forward. That changes the trigger from the shotgun barrel in the back to the rifle barrel in the front. An easy way to notice that is this is the rear sight for the rifle, and when I switch to the shotgun barrel, it drops down out of sight. When I switch back to rifle, it pops up. Pretty cool little handy feature there. You can see there are sling swivels on the gun, and there are a few distinguishing Nazi marks since this was a German military arm. See, there is it's not the standard style of eagle, but there is an eagle holding a swastika on the right barrel. And then the guns are also marked JP Sauer & Son Suhl. Those are the manufacturers, obviously. Like I said, this was a commercial model gun designed, first put on the market in 1930. Operation is pretty much like any break action gun. I'm going to pull the lever to the side. It breaks open. See, we have all 3 of our barrels there. That breaking open the gun obviously cocks all 3 of them, all 3 hammers or strikers, and then it closes back together. So here's the case. This is not the case for the gun you just saw. This is a separate case. It is being auctioned separately. So the firearm is lot number 755 in the September auction, and the case, I believe, is lot 754. You can see this case doesn't have any of the internal pieces. It would normally store ammunition over here, the guns in here, and then it had some documentation and some cleaning gear. It does still have, engraved in aluminum, the contents list of what you're supposed to have. You can take a closer look at that. Even without reading German, you can see down here we've got a box of 9.3 by 74R rifle ammo. We've got some Brennecke slugs, 65 millimeter. We have shot, 3.5 millimeter in diameter shot. So there you go. If you want to put together a joint venture of bombing Allied forces and then going for a safari, nothing better to do it with than your M3 survival rifle. Obviously, it didn't take very long before the Germans realized that this was really a kind of ludicrous expenditure, and they stopped doing this after they'd originally ordered 4,000, and only about 2,500 were actually manufactured and delivered before they cut the program short. And they are, in fact, actually today fairly rare. They show up. They're probably the most gorgeous issue military arm you'll ever see, but totally impractical. Now, at the entirely opposite end of the spectrum is what the United States military did for an aircrew survival rifle. This was after the war. This was in the 1950s. But rather than go expensive and fancy, they went cheap and simple. This is an M6 U.S. Air Force property survival rifle. These have been copied many, many times by many different commercial manufacturers in the U.S. But the original military version has a couple of interesting features to it. To start with, it only has a 14.5-inch barrel. So this one is registered with the NFA as such. Most of the reproductions have 18.5-inch barrels because they are a rifle over a shotgun. If you have less than an 18.5-inch or less than an 18-inch barrel, you have an NFA item with a shotgun. So these are, instead of being 12 gauge over 9.3 by 74R, these are 22 Hornet over 410, which kind of makes more sense for a survival gun. You don't necessarily need an elephant cartridge or a wildebeest cartridge. And these have a number of neat features to them. So I think we're going to be better off looking at this up close so I can show you all the cool stuff. All right, so this is the M6 survival rifle up close. It's got this nice black finish. Actually really surprising that the finish is all intact on this. The original US Air Force ones are not actually all that common. So it has a little property stamp here that we can zoom in on. So you got the little crossed cannons and PA. Now what we're really interested here is mechanism. So let's start with the sights, since we're there already. There's a 2-option flip-up sight. So you can just barely see that sight is marked 410 for the shotgun. And that one is marked 22 for the rifle barrel, which is of course 22 Hornet. These were made by the Ithaca Gun Company. On the other side, here on the other side we can see the main military markings. USAF property, serial number, and this is the rifle / shotgun, survival, caliber 22/410 M6. Now to load this, we have a break action lever, very much like an early split frame revolver. Open that up, and the gun folds like so. It didn't actually have a latch to lock in the folded position, it just opened up like that. From this position, you could then load it. You've got the 22 barrel on top, the 410 on the bottom, and we do have this extractor, no ejector on the gun, just that extractor that comes out slightly. So you load your 2 rounds, snap the gun shut. We have a really big hammer on there. So this plunger allows you to determine which barrel you're going to fire. When you bring it up, like it is now, this block hits the firing pin for the top barrel. When you push it to the bottom, the block now hits the firing pin for the bottom barrel. The trigger is this big bar, which is really fairly uncomfortable. Mechanically very simple, so it was cheap and easy to manufacture. But you know, this is not a sporting gun you'd take out for kicks like the Sauer M30 is. Keep this from firing too hard. Depress that, and voila. This does have a safety, so you can't push the hammer forward and accidentally fire a round unless you have the trigger depressed. The other interesting thing that it has, this has been copied to some extent by the commercial guns, is ammunition storage in the buttstock. So we have this rubber-coated cheek piece and a button right here. Push that button in, we can lift up the cheek piece, and we have storage inside for 9 rounds of .22 Hornet and 4 rounds of .410. And that's what these were issued with. So, these were in use with the U.S. Air Force from the 1950s into about the 1970s. They were stashed on heavy bombers, strategic Air Force bombers, for the same reason the Germans used it, in case you crashed and needed to either defend yourself against wildlife or a little bit of a perfunctory defense against people, or simply hunt for food. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Take a look at a couple different extreme ends of the survival gun idea. Again, all of these are up for auction at Rock Island, the September 2014 premiere auction. The case here is item 754. This particular drilling is 755. There are actually a couple other survival drillings in the auction as well. You can check out Rock Island's site to see those. And of course, the U.S. Air Force M6 survival rifle is item 3395. So good luck with your bidding if you'd like to become the proud new owner of any of these, and I appreciate you watching. Tune in again.